Hi, everybody. Freedom.
Freedom.
Freedom from the Black Flag Media Studio. Say that 10 times, I'll tell you.
I know,
It's
that's
not
it.
easy. So I was down at the beach this morning and I was saying, hey, watch for a new Black Flag Media Studio show. And it was hard.
Yeah.
And at that time I said, hey, say that 10 times.
Well, we'll get used to it eventually, I think.
Just
That's
before
all.
we start, don't forget,
C6.
no C63. So we'll be doing more on that probably tomorrow.
Yeah, the Orwell 1984 bill.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Basically took that right out of the book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did Frank called it this? He called it the snitch bill.
Yeah, and it is
I
a
love
snitch.
that.
It
It's
is
a
a snitch
snitch bill.
Yeah. You tell these leftists just for hurt feelings you're going to get $20,000.
I know.
Yeah, there'll
I
be
said to
thousands
Frank,
of them.
I'm going to report you, but you'll be reporting me, so we're even. But yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, we laugh, but it's frightening.
It is.
What did you call it? The Orwell 1984 bill.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, we're calling that from now on. And
Yeah.
the snitch bill.
Thought police?
Yeah. Oh, I have my button on today. Think while it's still legal. Think while it's still legal. I actually gave this button to a lawyer that I was chatting with yesterday, who is actually a liberal, and I gave him one of these buttons. So
Yeah, well,
There you
hopefully
go.
it sinks in.
I also gave him a Black Flag card.
Oh,
Yeah. So who
That's
knows?
good.
Maybe we'll get him over to us.
Well, maybe
I
we'll
said,
get him over.
come join us on the right side of history. We'll see.
well, I don't know why lawyers support the Liberals with the amount of perjury the Liberals do and obstruction of justice.
Absolutely. I don't get it either. But, that kind of brings us, well, today's subject matter is a political solution. That this situation that we are in, we want to talk about how it can be or should be or may be a political solution. And one of the things, and we'll get into talking about that, but one of the things that I know Andrew Lawton brought up the other day, and even talking to this liberal lawyer fellow, is that we have to have the ability to allow others, and including ourselves, to have a change of mind, have a change of position. If you're a card-carrying liberal but you're not liking it and you're not liking it, you can change. You don't have to be that just because. We have to have that ability. Or on the subject of that word we can't really say, that you have a needle in your arm.
Yeah.
That word. We can change our positions on these things. And if we don't allow ourselves to do that and others, we're just going to be stuck. And that's where we are right now, is stuck. So we need to find some kind of political solution to this problem. And when I even say political, yes, very much political, but within our society, with one another, with our neighbors and family, we need to find this middle ground, or this way of forgiveness, or whatever way you want to look at this. So that's my take on it for this moment in time.
Yeah, well, it's the biggest topic really in the freedom movement, and the freedom movement ourselves, all of us, we're guilty. We haven't strategized at all, right? So, and what I mean by that is you got to prepare for all possible scenarios. So I'll talk about the worst case scenario. Right? Let's just say the very worst case scenario. That Trudeau turns us into some sort of a tyranny. Well, we'll have to respond to it as such. Is it physically possible to completely change everything all at once, the whole government, how we're going to do it, and what are we going to turn it into? Well, the odds of that, what are the odds of that? And I tell you, the odds of it is we may want to, but we've got 50% of the population that are so apathetic, and then we have all these institutions. Well, how are the institutions going to respond? How are the police going to respond? Suppose it's 50% of the army, 50% of the police. So what? These are things we need to plan. But the one agreement is, and this is the one thread. So the way our government system is right now has to change. So
I think probably most of us are on board with that. There's some very basic changes that need to be made, and so that we don't fall into this trap again.
yeah,
That's the main thing. I would say most of us would say we cannot allow Canada to have the ability to become a dictatorship.
sure,
No.
yeah.
And how do we do that?
How do we do it?
Why have we fallen this far down that
Right.
hole already?
So if we make that swing to the right again, so we go over to the conservative side. Now I know there's people. Is Polyev related to the World Economic Forum? Maybe he was at one point in time. So there is this. So I see where people are coming from that. We just do a swing, and then he gets into it. But let's kind of just a real quick thing of in history wise. So we're actually a parliamentary democracy, and what I mean by a parliamentary democracy is it's basically the majority of parliamentarians judge it. So in theory, and it was always a gentleman's agreement when in British, the MP would represent the people in his vote. Well, this Liberal government, and this is what we've seen, this Liberal government has shown that it's their agenda, their ideology. They take no feedback or anything from the general public at all. So now we're basically the majority of those MPs, so you have Singh and all of this, they're dictating to us, right?
Yes.
And the regular people don't realize that the actual government procedure, and it belongs to us. The government belongs to us. It doesn't belong to them. But like I mentioned, this 50%. The majority of these people still think, and these MPs think they've become rulers as opposed to representatives. They're an elected bureaucrat. So if you go way back in history, democracy, basically they say democracy was formed in Greece. So Greece at the time was a bunch of city-states. And basically they formed I guess you would say a Senate or a Congress. So leaders or elders from all these cities would come and then they'd vote. But it was a funny thing that Socrates said that democracy will never work, because what will happen is the majority will have central power, corruption forms from central power, and then that's it, it'll crumble. So along came so then we had, after history like that, from that period on, it was basically either an emperor or a king or something like that. So it was always empirical rule down. And then the British formed this parliamentary system, but we got to remember, at the top of the parliamentary system, still the crown. The crown is still at the top of the parliamentary system. So along came the United States, and what the United States is actually a constitutional republic. So those founding fathers looked at democracy, they realized, the majority of that that power concentration, the minority would be stamped out by that majority. So they ingrained their constitution within actually the government framework. And then they have all those amendments here, First Amendment, Second Amendment, blah, blah, blah. And that was there to protect those that may not agree with, but minority, but still have a consensus of the population to do that. And then to do that, they created checks and balances. So they have the Senate, the Congress, and then the White House. So all three can create bills, but it'll take all three to agree to pass it. So these are all the safeguards they put in place. And the White House can't just write checks like they can here. Like Trudeau, $9 billion to Ukraine, sure. It was all his decision. And the U.S. that has to get, both houses have to pass it. Okay, he can give them this much money. So that's kind of what I'm saying. And what I'm alluding to is with us, it's clearly that the Conservatives, if there was an election, the Conservatives are going to win. So suppose we go down that path. Well, let's prepare for that. I mean, we know, I know all about the swings and all about that, but this is tending where it's going to go. So we better start influencing it now. And what I mean by influencing it is I've talked to a lot of those MPs and said, listen, we need constitutional change. Trudeau has shown that every flaw in our government, him and Jagmeet Singh exploded. And like Jagmeet Singh, even canceling that committee on that bioweapon, or the theft from Winnipeg, the level 5 lab that we have in Winnipeg. That's not going to affect the government. Why would Singh even vote for it? So that shows a level of corruption. Now, I've talked to all of them. Really, the first two steps is an electable Senate, right? And that electable Senate can veto the House and can veto the Prime Minister. Do we go to Republic? Do we change the Prime Minister to a president? Do we eliminate the Crown? Can we get all those steps done at once? Not with the population that we have.
No.
The population that we have, do you think we could probably get a referendum on an electable Senate? I think we could. And these are the things that now, the Conservatives go in. We can't stop. We can't stop the protest, but we've got to somehow
Stop the process, you mean?
stop. Yeah. We got to get involved in that process. Now, a lot of those MPs, especially ones from Western Canada, they're all agreement with me on an electable Senate. So, if we do let things go as they are now, and the Conservatives win without us having this year to at least get involved in there and let them know, listen, we're allies now, but we can quickly turn.
Well, this has been my
So,
point
yeah,
for a
yeah.
long time, is
So
that, it looked, the last year it's looked more and more like the Conservatives were gaining momentum and gaining power,
Yeah.
as far as electoral, in the polls, etc. So I say, we've been watching them pretty closely. And I'm certainly not that, our government is our saviors or the leaders are our saviors. No, we have to save ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is that we live under the Canadian rule of law, and we live under this parliamentary system. So trying to battle that at the whole thing at this point would be ludicrous, in my opinion. But so watching the Conservatives as they climbed up through the polls and started seemingly speaking our language, speaking to us and talking about no mandates and talking about no digital ID or no mandatory digital ID and central banks ID, etc. We're a lot of us are behind that and happy with that. However, there's still lots of loopholes and lots of things that need to be looked at. And I keep saying, this is the position I've taken on for myself, is that if the Conservatives are rising that far in the polls and they are likely, very, very likely to be our next government, is it not to our best interest as individuals, and certainly the freedom movement, whatever one might want to call that or see that, is it not in our best interest to get ahead of them as opposed to behind them? And what I mean by that is what Derek's saying, speak to these MPs, try and talk to them now. Even now is getting harder, whereas, a month or so ago was a little bit easier because they were wanting our vote, wanting our attention. But we need to address these with these Conservatives. So and elections are not in the polls, it's not a done deal.
No.
So we still have this power in our hands as the freedom movement to get into those offices by email, by phone, by personal visits. I think are the best, and to speak our mind and maybe. This conversation is certainly not the first, but maybe one of the first conversations that we can collectively start getting ideas about how we want to see it, how we want to see this democracy and this system, what changes we do want to see in it. Yours might be different than mine. Yeah. So, in this video, let's put your comments in there. Let's get your ideas out there. Let's start ideas going, like real concrete ideas, not just storming the gates, or whatever, just talking about the problems. We need to find solutions to this, and we need to be able to present those solutions to those members of the parliament, and I say at this point it'll likely be the Conservatives, so let's get ahead of them and offer our ideas, because we can always take our vote away. And and that maybe takes us to the idea of independent candidates, which many people are bringing up. And I personally, I think, go for it. If you want to be an independent candidate and run that way, and you have an independent candidate in your riding running, you know, if you like what they're saying, you like their platform, then vote for them. I'm a little cautious about it, just because people, it's a freedom person, we'll vote for them. Well, what are they actually saying?
Well, true, and the odds of it, it's very difficult. The other thing too, I think, because you don't belong to a federal party, you're limited on the amount of spending that you can do as well.
You're not limited to amount you can talk.
And talk. So
Yeah, in
like
the House.
like truly with an independent. So they are independents there now, but they started off with a party and then they were booted out. But the last independent to win was Jody Wilson-Raybould.
But she was kind of booted out to begin with.
She was booted out.
And then she ran.
She ran again. She won as an independent.
Yeah.
But the other lady that was also booted out was Dr. Jane Philpott.
Right.
And she ran as an independent the same election that Jody Wilson-Raybould did.
I don't think she got in. Did she?
She never did as an independent. She was very popular too. I mean, when she was in the Liberals, she had over 60% of that vote, and then when she became an independent, she had nothing.
Yeah.
And then the last independent to win prior to that was in 2008. So that's the difficulty.
And I'm sorry, I forget the guy's name, but the MP that's in Toronto Centre, he was a Liberal and he was kicked out, and he stayed as an independent. So he's in there, but again, he's in there now, but again, he was kicked out of the Liberals. That's not necessarily the way we want independent candidates.
No. Well, of course, and then no one's going to trust them in there anyway. But so let's just say the election was the end they had it. So now, if you think Trudeau and Singh have power, Poilievre, as it figures, would have the biggest majority in Canadian history. So now, look at the power that he has. With relatively the same rules that Justin rules that Justin was working under.
And people are saying, well, how do we trust him? Well, maybe we don't.
Maybe we don't.
But we to change the system on a dime, we can't do. So best to come at them now.
A very big army to do that.
Yeah. And that's just not going to happen. So we have to be smart about this, and we have to use our energy and our time and our opinions effectively. So that, yes, if they've got this big majority and this big power, they've got to know that we are still here, that the freedom movement still exists. And I don't know what the numbers are. I couldn't even really guess. 1 million, 3 million? I have no idea.
We don't know. But I know on the street side, so Poilievre in his last rally that he had there in Toronto, he said no digital ID, no digital currency. I hoped he had said no World Economic Forum. Period.
Members of Parliament from any involvement in the World Economic Forum.
Within his party, I want it declared a terrorist entity, but we have to tackle that one. But the general public now knows. Like I see it on the media. So I've actually started now talking to them more about the changes now. But electable Senate change, get rid of the India Act. They still want to live under a crown. Do you know what the GG does? People, I don't know. Do you know what the Privy Council does? Well, I don't know. You we have senators that have been there for 35 years, and they're approving the Justin's. But I didn't know that. So
there's a lot that we as citizens don't really know.
Yeah,
about
so
our system,
I'm starting to focus on that now. So, what we know, like we're really as the movement, we've got a year, and we've had all these initiatives from everything. Let's just suppose it goes full tyranny. Well, then we'll have to. We should have a plan for that too, and we do, but it's all scattered. It's all scattered, and everyone all has different ideas. But I can tell you, and I've got hundreds of military and strategic books, and I tell you, we do not have enough in this population to do that. It's not. And we just don't know how to do it. It's just because you have such a 50% of those regular people out there do not know anything.
It would just be chaos.
It would just be we've got to.
So let's not get to that. Let's stop
but,
that before it gets to anything like that. And I think really the best way is to get it through to the Conservative members of Parliament that are here now, and any of the new ones coming in. We've got to get to them. We've got to we've got to start talking about these reforms and bring up the possibility of a referendum of some sort, whatever that consensually might be. The first one, like, do we tackle the Senate being elected? Do we have a referendum about the Indian Act, or what were these holes? What are the holes? Like, maybe we have to determine what are those loopholes that enabled this Trudeau Singh government to be as tyrannical as they are.
Well, the biggest one is no accountability, and because those two have the majority. So every committee that they have, you got to remember. So you hear all these committee meetings. So those committee meetings could either be, it's an odd number. So most of them are 13, right? I think some are like 7. So what will happen is the Conservatives so they come into the committee meeting. Here's the topic. So the chair is always a Liberal, because the Liberals are the ruling party, and then he'll do a vote. Well, who votes in favor of just canceling this committee? And the Liberals and NDP vote, yeah, I'm in favor, and no matter what the Conservative says, the committee shut down.
It's done.
So that shows you how ridiculous it is. And in the States, you hear the Senate or congressional hearings, which are actually judicial. They're actually run as a courtroom. All of these scandals, there's no way that would ever get shot down in the States.
Look at the U.S. They're in a big mess as much
They're in a
as
big
we
mess
are, if not
well.
more in a way. The
and
borders being completely destroyed, and they've got they've got Biden and the Democrats in there that are being ideologues as much as Trudeau and that bunch. Running these on some weird ideologies. They're doing kind of
same thing.
Almost worse.
That's the same thing, and it all comes down to one issue: the general populace. We fell asleep at the wheels. We let these leaders think that they were rulers as opposed to elected bodies.
Right.
For the most part in Canada, we don't have any term limits on anything. In the States, there is term limits, but you're talking about guys 35 years, 40, 50 years in politics. Of course, they're going to turn to corruption. That's another thing that we have to that we have to be. So these are all the little things that we have to start building awareness on, because the other thing too is tell these Conservatives, they may think they have it in the bag, but you don't know how deceitful and insidious Trudeau is.
Oh yeah,
he has a whole year. Even if Trudeau puts this carbon tax in, who knows? Just before the election, he'll say, with the climate thing, you can make up anything. Trudeau will come up and says, "You guys did it.
We've done it.
We reached our carbon threshold, so we're removing all those taxes."
Oh yeah.
And
it'll be tricky for sure.
And then he'll throw this out, and he'll throw that out, and he'll start buying votes off before the election. He'll take the thing to abortion or something like that to throw off the Conservatives. So they don't even. So they better start thinking. They don't have it in the bag, that they need our support still, but our support comes with a cost. So these are the things we got to move on it quick, because we've got
we do
15,
have to move on it quick.
15 months basically.
Yeah, we do have to. Now, I just kind of want to put this out there just because, but at Poilievre's rally, he made a call out to have a pressure campaign on the Liberal MPs and NDP, NDP. And I was sitting there and I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Are you kidding me? What do you think we've been doing as a freedom movement? And what do you think we've been doing for the last 2+ years? That's all we've been doing, is doing our best to put pressure by tyrant patrols, by things like this, by protests that we get out there, by convoying to here and there.
Oh, well, we're all over them as soon as they get out of the Suburban.
That's they can't even move.
They can't even
saying,
move.
We have to. So I had a little bit of a.
That threw me off too.
A little bit of.
In some of these offices, we've been 4 times to some of these offices now, and they can't even stick their head out in public here in Toronto, or we're on top of them. So that was
a little bit of a. Hey,
I
come
don't
on,
like that comment.
But I understood that what he was trying to say, and there are still a lot of people that even in this movement, but that they may not be necessarily in the movement as such, and because the movement, forgive me if I'm wrong or my opinion isn't the same as yours, but this movement was born out of the mandates.
Yeah.
And so there's probably lots of conservatives out there, you know, voting conservatives that would have been happy with the mandates, you know. So you know, we can't really kind of necessarily say that's the whole freedom movement, you know, that collectively that are conservative voters. Where was I going with that? I forget now. But, you know, we have to continue to put that pressure on, but, you know, certainly to the Liberal NDPs, which we have been doing, but we do have to put the pressure on the Conservative members. And I am behind them. Like, don't get me wrong. At this point in the game, I am, because they are what we are going to have to deal with. So better to get behind them and let them listen to us. Have them listen to us. So, I don't know. Is there anything more we want to bring up about this?
Well, that's it. And well, just other than the general public, we got to start getting them in tune here, in which they are. Like, I mean,
they must be.
I see it every day. I'm getting more and more messages from people outside the movement now.
Yeah.
Either with something that we've done recently, that they're starting to see what's happening. But this April 21st, I mean, this is going to be critical. I mean, some April 1st, those new tax increases, you're talking some items are going up 20%.
Yeah.
Because of these taxes.
Yeah. It's going to be bad, and it may be not felt, you know, the public might not feel it right off the bat, but eventually they're going to feel it more and more and more. And hopefully that can be, you know, maybe then they'll wake up to the fact that this Liberal Party, regardless of the mandates and all that, you know, as the freedom movement was born from, but they'll see that the Liberal Party are corrupt and they're not here for them. They're here for their own power grabbing. Yeah.
Real quick to close when you said that. So my brother's in the banking system, and the media is not even reporting this. So we've had the first 3 months where we've had double foreclosures each month. So you know what that means? So the last 3 months, so they measure mortgage foreclosures, and then there's bankruptcies on top of that. So like last month it went up 50% from the month previous, and that month was actually 50% more than that other one. So I have a relative that's in the banking that deals with foreclosures. So this time, 10 years ago, he maybe had one foreclosure, two foreclosures a month. He's up to 30 a month. No, one a day. So the general public is going to start feeling this, and they're going to start feeling it now. And
I mean, you know, as much as I sure don't want that, and I think,
I know, but we got to get these people ready.
The public.
Hopefully it does.
So, you know, keep an eye on us. We will be doing a little bit more silent patrolling the next while.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. And keep an eye on. We'll probably both of us will come on live, or you know, we'll do a little film about what we're doing, and so maybe what we're doing that might inspire you guys to do something similar. And get out there, you know, across the country and start, you know, standing in front of those MP's office. You know, at this point I'm talking about Liberal for the most part, but NDP, you know, get in front of those offices. Like, say we're not taking this line down.
No.
We just can't. And so get out in front of them, but also call your Conservative MPs, you know, by all means. I approach them like, thank you for all you're doing, and then, you know, but we have things that we need to talk about, and so that's kind of the next big step. And what I, you know, maybe the next Black Flag or one, you know, soon, you know, to talk about a way through this, a way forward as for the movement, for us as Canadians to move forward with this, because again, we started this with the protesting against the mandates, and that's still a huge issue, and not so much the mandates themselves, but the consequences of what they did are still ongoing and will be, who knows how many generations. And you know, over this last couple of years, we've gotten to know, and many of us gotten to know, you know, doctors and virologists and people that are studying all this, and we can bring them on and we can maybe talk about that a little bit further.
Like Bill C-63 is a result because when they did the mandates, they realized that they can get away with a bill like this too.
Yeah, no
Right.
kidding.
Right. So
Yeah, like what have you said about it? They don't need the Emergency Act anymore.
They
They
just
have
need
Bill
that.
C-63.
Oh yeah, they're talking about changing whatever they have to do to change the
Yeah, to
emergency
make it
act.
more, yeah.
Because they know it's going to the Supreme Court anyway.
Yeah.
They'll lose it. But Bill C-60, they don't need it.
No.
They just arrest everybody beforehand
Yeah.
based on that. So there's no
Yeah,
need for the
I was
emergency
pretty
act.
sure you were thinking of doing something, so.
Oh yes,
Pretty sure.
I won't say
Yeah,
anything.
I
more
think
after that.
I think we're all gonna be.
We'll wait until the next one
Yeah.
comes around.
Okay, I think that's it. Eh?
That's it. Yeah.
All right. Okay, freedom, everybody, and we'll
Freedom.
talk to you.